Welcome to episode 24 of Joe Blow. Today, this is going to be interesting. I've used the word veteran for you. No, it will be interesting. 30-year real estate veteran. I got called a finance veteran the other day, and I was like, is that good or not? Does that mean I'm experienced or old?
I'm hoping you gleaned the veteran off LinkedIn or something and it wasn't somebody else's.
No. 30-year veteran who started H&H, Hutton Hutton, 2017 or 16?
Oh, well, 14 really, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 17 from some article that I read.
Yeah, well, that's when we probably got a bit, out of the service office and into a proper office. And
I remember your brand because I've done this obviously for finance 22 years, and I'm good friends with Paul and Jimmy Curtin, so I've always followed I actually had I had 1 year in real estate.
I taught Paul how to sell off the plan.
Oh, really?
That's my claim to fame.
Oh, how good.
So that's it. So we may as well just pack this up now.
Yeah, let's go. No, because I always followed your brand. It was a cool brand, and I remember, and I know your office down at New Farm when it was there. I actually had a friend that worked for you for a little while.
Oh.
Gemma.
Ah, Gemma.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was...
Good agent.
Yeah.
Really
And it was interesting because... This is where I became, because I always loved your brand. It was always, because real estate is relatively daggy and Place came in and they've dressed it up a little bit. But your brand for me was that really cool brand, and you guys dressed well. You've obviously got your golden goose, which are cool. I haven't.
Yeah, and somebody said to me today I should sell them because they're worth about $1,000.
Yeah,
now.
no, they are. I love them. She hates them, but I love them. She goes, I can't believe you paid $1,000 for them. And I went, yeah, but they got little trim and the most uncomfortable shoes I have, I reckon. But I loved your brand, and then I remember going down to New Farm and you were gone.
Yeah.
And I was like,
what happened?
God, that's so weird. And then I remember being on LinkedIn, and here's Peter the painter. And I was like, fuck, what an interesting dude. And then I was doing the podcast at the time. I thought, I'd love to hear his story. And I remember telling someone yesterday, they said, who have you got on the podcast? And I mentioned you, and I said, yeah, he had his own real estate business, and then he became a painter. And that mate of mine said, a house painter? And I said, no, like an artist. So for me, I've been so intrigued in there to where you are now, and your two businesses that you started. And for me, that is a Joe Blow. It's like there's so many chunks in there that we need to sort of unravel that I want to have a look at. And I think you're an interesting dude. So before I get there, one of the things that everyone seems to love in these podcasts is I want to take you back to Peter 18. Did he have hair? Did he have long hippie hair? Or
there's no hair now, but yeah, I had hair. Yeah.
So who's Peter at 18? What's he like?
I was a bird nerd.
Bird nerd?
A bird nerd.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. Just at an early age, started looking at parrots out of my window as a kid. And by the time I was 18, I think I pretty much memorised all 600 species in Australia. And a mate of mine, and his nickname was Cows, he and I used to hang out at 18 and we'd go camping and bird counting, and we'd send our results into the Queensland Museum and all sorts of things. So, that was something, that was one aspect of me. But I was a footballer, I used to party a lot at 18, and I went to QIT, now QUT, and I was going to become a scientist. And I was in doing a Bachelor of Science Biology, and I pretty much didn't go to any of the seminars, and I just hung out with my mates all day long at the rec room and partied and went out. And I think after about 9 months of doing that, and then the last big exams came, and I realised that I would never pass them because I hadn't been studying, and I went, well, what the hell am I doing? And I went home, and I was living at home at Aspley with Mum and Dad, and brother was still there, and I said, Dad, I'm not going to go stick with this university stuff, and I don't want to be a scientist. I don't even know what I was going to do. And he said, well, you've got to get a job. And I said, that's what I want to get a job. And he said, well, you need a job so you can pay board. And I said, well, I wasn't paying board. And all of a sudden now the board thing came in, and he said, well, you're not going to university, so you've got to pay board. And I went, okay. And I said, well, I need a job. And he said, I'll get you a job. And within 3 hours he had me booked in for not an interview, but a starting time with a mate of his who owned a wool store in Newstead. The last wool store in Newstead in Beeston Street. And I started there at 6 a.m. one morning, sweeping floors, and I just fell in love with it. And I became really good at sweeping floors and unloading trucks. And the boss really liked me and started to teach me how to wool class. So I went off and got my wool classing ticket. And then I became their wool classer amongst other wool classes, and would travel down to various wool stores with one of his business partner, Brian, they called Zoom. And so 18, 19, I was covered in wool and lanolin and burrs and marks and ink from from marking up bales, and excited about the future, about this wool, and being a storeman and packer. And the guys there couldn't really understand me because we sort of seemed to come from a different world, even though I came from Aspley. They sort of treated me like I was some sort of upper crust sort of guy because I went to a private school, I went to public school. I don't know what it was, but maybe it was my interest in cars, and I ended up a couple of years into that. I had a little Datsun 2000 Sports Fair Lady, and
I had an old Tirana at those times.
Oh, I loved the
yellow one,
Tiranas.
2-door.
Yeah. Aren't they great, old
It
cars?
was so good. I wish
loved
I'd
my
kept
car.
it now.
Dick Johnson's a mechanic used to work on my car.
Really?
Yep. And every cent I had went into that car, and I drove it from when I was 19 going on 20 from Brisbane with a mate to Adelaide, where we went to a friend's farm. We used dynamite to blow stuff up, and we went down an abandoned gold mine about 100 metres underneath the ground, which was very dangerous, but I was like, this is so cool, so let's do it. So, 18, I was doing a bit of rally driving with a mate and going to the pub, smoking, partying.
Did you have any... Were you like... When I was young, I was always going to be an actor. And I had a go at it, but it didn't work, obviously.
You'd be a good actor.
Yeah, I was great. I was one of the greats. I would have been like Heath Ledger. No.
I know, Mr. In-Between.
Oh,
you could have gone on that show.
That'd be a great role. That one or Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you grow up with any sort of like real big dreams or ambitions? Did you go... when you were 18, was it all just about girls and partying, or did you go, one day I want to do X?
I didn't have any big dreams at all.
Just wanted to be a wool man.
I just wanted to be out in the world.
Mm.
I wanted to travel. I wanted to be with friends. I wanted to party. I just wanted to have like adventure.
Yeah, okay.
I think my purpose at that stage in life was like as a little kid, I used to dream about buying a caravan one day and going on an adventure, and I'd go down as soon as I could ride my pushy back in those days you're allowed to go right away from the house at an early age. So we were riding our push bikes from 10, 12, about 10, 11 years of age out to Redcliffe and back from Aspley, and we'd go fishing out there, and that was all cool back in those days, or maybe it was my parents were slack, I don't know. But
what did your parents do?
Dad was in the beef industry. He managed a small abattoir cold room down at Hamilton. And my mum, because Dad got laid off, and when the beef industry crashed, Mum went, well, I'll take over, and she did, and she became a very, very successful interior decorator.
Wow.
Very, very successful at that, and she had clients that had Learjets, and she used to do, these fancy houses, and she had all the butchers' wives in Brisbane as her clients. They all came to her, and they would bring... maybe I shouldn't say this. Oh, it's too late now. She's nearly 90. She'll be fine. The ladies used to bring, pay for all the curtains and the lounge suites, whatever, in cash, in brown paper bags. So back in the day when cash was the thing, and you know the butchers were collecting cash and giving it to the wives, and the wives were spending it on places like Judy Hutton Interiors. And so Mum had a very good business out of that. So, and we had, we lived in a house at Aspley. That was a very modest house, but it was beautiful. Like my mum had it looking magnificent, and she's a collector, and she eye for detail, and I've sort of inherited that eye for detail, and the gardens were superb. And only a few years ago, I went out to Aspley to check out the house. Oh my God, I was horrified. So I'm out the front. I had to take photos, and as I took this photo, I kid you not, I'm taking a photograph of the front of the house to document it, not to show Mum because it would have killed her. And she's never seen this photo. I sent it to my brother so he could have a laugh, because Scott and I used to have to work in the gardens all the time. So I've taken this photograph, and this guy walks in front, and just as I walked past, out of nowhere, this little street in Aspley, and I looked at him on the photograph, and I realised I know that guy, and he's a local drug dealer from New Farm, living in our street. So the front yard, the fence, there was a fence there, galvanised iron. Like, it had car bodies in the front yard, all of the beautiful azaleas and hydrangeas and hibiscus and all of these beautiful plants that my mum had cultivated, and the garden was superb, and the lawns were perfect because Scott and I used to look after it. Completely gone, and the house looked like it should be demolished. And my uncle Theo Hutton, he designed the house, and he was a very well-known mid-century modern architect. He designed the first high-rise in New Farm, Glenfallic, on Oxlade Drive. So that was his claim to fame, and he designed the house. It was very simple. It was like a pavilion house, two boxes, but from the outside it looked very plain. Inside it was just beautiful. Cushions and colours and flowers and stuff. Yeah.
So how do we go from? I'm trying to see the wool connection. Store, the wool, the cleaning of the wool, to this high tech real estate business.
Yeah. Well, interesting. For me, it was interesting because I saw the wool industry. My father said to me, because there was a time where at first I didn't want to be there, and it was hard work, and I'd come home with blisters on my hands every day, and there was a bully there who used to paint on my shoulder a private stripe with indelible ink, and I'd wash it off every night and come back to work the next day, and because you're wearing Jackie Howe singlets, he would see the red mark, the welt caused from the ink, and he would put another one there. So he did that, and he was quite a big guy, and I just copped it sweet. And but I knew I had something over him that I thought he would always be there, but I wouldn't, because I just saw it as an opportunity to learn and to do a really good job. So I was super focused on sweeping the floors really, really well. Like, it became a passion. I know that sounds weird, but it actually, you sweep floors of a 2-acre shed, which is really hard to do. You can be blistered and bleeding and buggered by the end of the day, or you can go, how can I do this better so I don't get blisters? And there is a way, and sweep the wool. And because of that attitude, it was rewarded. And then I went, that's interesting. And then it was rewarded again. So it became a bit of a game for me. And sooner or later, I outgrew that wool store, and the boss said to me, you've outgrown it. I've got no higher job, but this job's just come up. It's the next level up. And he was a family friend as well. And he said, I really think you should go for it, Peter. It's much higher pay. I'd be sad to see you go, but there's no future for you here. And he said, all of those guys out there, they're going to be doing the same thing in 30 years' time, pressing bales of wool, unloading trucks. And actually that was true. That was the case. So I went on this journey where I went, okay, I'm just going to learn and use it as an opportunity to learn. It doesn't matter what job it is. I'm going to cop it sweet and just be really good at it. And I did. And so I joined another wool store, Queensland Wool Centre. Before too long, I found myself getting to the end of the day, an hour before the end of the day at 3 p.m, and our knockoff was 4. So my boss would say, okay, tools down at 3, we've finished for the day, let's go into our office and let's read women's weekly magazines. And I'm like, oh man, I can't do that. And I noticed around that time this guy, a bit older than me, 10 years older than me, a wool auctioneer and a wool valuer from Dalgety, a good old Australian company, would come out around 3 o'clock and to go out and value wool. So one day I went up to him and I introduced myself, and he said his name was Rob, and Brownie, and he said, and I said, can I help you? Can I actually tag along, see what you do? And he said, yeah. So every day for a year in the afternoon, I would work for him for free for an hour. And even though I was getting paid by the other place, but we'd already down tools. And so I'd spend an hour every day with Rob, and he was teaching me about wool valuing. And then a job came up in Dalgety, and Brownie put me up for it. And back in those days, to get that kind of job, which was a junior wool valuer, an auctioneer for Dalgety, whether it was Dalgety or Elders or Primac, you basically had to be off the land. You had to be the son of a grazier. That's how they all started out. All of them were sons of graziers except for me. I got in there because maybe there was nobody else that they could see at the time, but I was Johnny on the spot, and I was super excited, and I tried to sell myself to the boss after I met him, and every day for 2 weeks I hadn't made up their mind. I'd see him, I'd go up to him and say, and I wouldn't make up a story, but I had family around Queensland, I'd make big promises. You know, if you employ me, then, you know, the Nasons at Surat, I'm going to get them to move their wool clip from Elders to Dalgety. And every day I'd come up with another reason why he should choose me. And at the end of the day, he just got sick of me pestering him, and he put me on at Dalgety. And then a couple of years in, they bought a big computer. And the company, National Computer System, the size of this studio, a bit bigger. And nobody knew really what to do with it. So they formed a national committee, and they chose 8 young people out of the 2,000 people in Australia to be part of this committee. And I put my hand up for it, and I got selected. So here I was, didn't know what a computer did. I'd only seen them on the Jetsons or...
What year is this?
This would have been 1984.
Okay.
And so now I'm learning about computers, and we decided let's use it as a database, and we'll download every client in Australia that uses Dalgety, and we'll start building a profile about them. So that's where the first big rural database started in Australia. And I don't know who came up with that idea, but as a committee, we thought that was a good idea. And yeah, that's what we did. And then a job came up in Sydney for Dalgety as a junior wool buyer, a wool trader for the international department, which they called in those days the gin and tonic club of the company, because nobody really knew what they did, and they seemed to be protected. Had a whole floor of an office in Circular Quay, and I got that job and got married. Karen and I moved down there and spent 4 years with Dalgety in Sydney and Melbourne. Next 4.5 years with them, and then ended up running their greasy wool department. But every time as soon as I got to the end of learning, I started looking for another learning opportunity, and it just became a bit of an adventure. And you know that I'm so grateful for Dalgety and what they did for me, and that whole wool. I would still be there today, except for the fact that the wool industry crashed. They killed 1 million sheep in Queensland. They really decimated that industry in Australia. Russia was starting to produce wool. China, South Africa, and so our grip on the merino had started to get loosened, and I could see that, and I was ready for a new adventure. So we moved back to Brisbane with our youngest daughter, Lucy, and early 90s, 93 I think it was, we're back in Brisbane, and I was like, what am I going to do now? And the family said, you should do real estate. And why they said that was because in my 20s I'd bought and sold property. I subdivided a block of units. I bought a block of units when I was about 25, and subdivided that, and then sold that block and bought a commercial little house and shop and subdivided that and sold them off and got the taste for property. And then when they said that, it made sense because I thought I could learn that, I can sell, and at the time I just didn't rate the real estate agents I was working in Ascot, and there wasn't any really, there were, again I should be careful, there was one or two really good agents.
So that's mid-90s or late 90s?
That was 1994. Started with Spiro Connius at Connius Apollo at Ascot.
Yeah.
And then after about 3 months, he made me sales manager. And the brothers had 6 or 7 offices, the Connius brothers. They were all under the one brand at that stage.
Who was big back then?
Oh, well, in Ascot, there was Ray White. It was really Ray White. But Connius in Ascot, we were the best boutique office in that area, and very successful. And Spiro had the biggest house in Ascot. He bought the old nursing home hospital for $1 million in 1994 and spent a couple of million dollars renovating, which was a lot of money back then. And he, a tremendous guy, taught me a lot. But I got there, I spent a year there, and I could just see myself being stuck there. And
how did you find real estate, though, initially when you came from the wool industry?
Hard.
Was it different back then than what it is today?
Oh, it's a completely different industry. You're more like a buyer's agent. You're more akin to today's buyer's agent than today's seller's agent. I mean, we had 150 listings, open listings. And when I started, I was told by the people I was working with, you know, don't even think of listing or selling a property. You've got to learn all the stock first. Phone up every single owner, and before you start showing a single buyer around, go and look at 150 properties. But here Karen, we had a 1-year-old baby. We'd just moved back to Brisbane. We had invested money, everything from the sale of our Melbourne property, into a national business, not my business, but somebody's business, and it went broke. So we lost all of our money. So I was back to square one in 1994 after 10 years of trading property and building up equity and owning, property. I needed money, and they're telling me I'm not going to earn anything for 6 months, and there was nothing. And Spiro's answer was just go on the dole for the first 6 months, which I did. But I listed and sold my first property in a week because what I did was I went, there's nobody teaching me what to do. There was no training. And I just thought, well, it's a game of connection. I just need to find buyers and sellers. Spiro gave me 7 buyers to work with that he'd been trying to find properties for 6 months. So I started there. I phoned all of them. And there was one in the phone call, after asking her a few questions, that I realised her urgency was higher than everybody else. So I forgot everybody else and I just focused on her urgency, and I worked out why she was urgently needing a property and what her plans were and what would solve her problem. And then I just thought, who can I phone? So I started phoning old schoolmates and friends and family, and very close.
To find a property for her.
For her. And I
and
called,
off market.
I called a friend's husband who I didn't really know, and I phoned him up, and he was working for a development company, Ross Nielsen Development, and he said, we so happen to have a townhouse at Hendra, brand new, and he told me about it. I went, oh, that is perfect. Price, perfect. And he said, and we've got a special running on it. And I said, what's the special? And he said, double the commission. I said, that's right. Is that right? So I went back into the office after I got back off the phone, and I went up to the administration manager and I said, is this on our books, this property? And they said, no. And I said, I filled out the little form. I said, there's my first listing. So that was on day 6. And day 7, the buyer came down from Townsville. And I thought to myself, she's travelling this far, she's going to buy that property. There's no way she's going to come all the way down and turn back, and she's going to buy this property. So I took her to the property, and she bought it. So I listed and sold my first property in 7 days, and then within about 9 months, I was the number 1 agent out of the 6 offices. And then I got, I was just like, okay, what's next?
Why do you think you're that good at it?
I think Dalgety, I have a lot to thank for the training at Dalgety. In the early stages of Dalgety, they would fly out American sales specialists to teach everybody that were at the front of house in selling Dalgety, and very American, like Zig Ziglar sort of stuff. But I took it all on board because I sort of like, I wouldn't challenge them. I would just accept it. If he's the professional, that's what it is, I'll do that. So I just did what I was told. Then when I was selling wool, because now, when I got into wool trading, I'm selling wool to Russians and Italians and Germans, and I'm on the phone to people at crazy hour midnight selling wool, and it was just a real buzz. And I used to have to entertain all of these people from around the world would come to Australia. Nobody wanted to do it, but I loved it, so I put my hand up for it. So 3 days a week I was out to lunch with either a German or a Taiwanese or a Russian or somebody from France, or you name it. And fortunately enough was sent on world trips like to New York and London and Tokyo and selling wool. And so you learn how people think from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it was selling over the phone, so you can't see the person. You've got to listen to their tone, try and get into what do they need. And with wool, you're selling a commodity. Like, everybody's selling wool.
Mm.
Like, there was 30 wool trading companies selling the same wool to the same mill using the same shipping boats, shipping out of the same port to the same, delivering to the same port, using the same insurance companies, using the US dollar and all of that. It's all the same. It's the only thing that was different was relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what I figured out was these guys were bereft of information about Australia, and this is pre-internet, so every day I would just go through 2 or 3 newspapers, Financial Review, the Australian, Sydney Morning Herald, whatever I could get my hand on, and I'd cut out an article of interest, I'd photograph it, and then I'd stick it onto a piece of paper, and then I'd hand write on it and fax it to 5 or 6 woolen mills, to their head wool procurement team.
Mm.
And I was the only one doing it, and I was like 25 doing that. So I figured when I went into real estate, what I took from wool was relationship, listening, tone, empathy, and information. Be the person that has the information. So I wrote my first newsletter. I had to teach myself how to use a computer in the first 2 weeks of my time with Spiro Conneus. I had a little 386 laptop Acer, little grey thing. It was as cute as. Nobody had a laptop, so I didn't know how to use it, but I got it thinking it would be necessary.
Mm.
And so I taught myself how to use that. I taught myself Microsoft Publisher and Microsoft Word, and I produced my first newsletter within 4 weeks of being in real estate. And every 4 weeks I would do what's happening in the marketplace, and I'd letterbox drop that throughout all of Ascot. And that's how I got my listings.
Did you do all the letterbox drops yourself?
Yeah, I did a letterbox
Printed
drops.
them?
I put my signs out. This is pre Jim Sawley days, when you could, or even maybe it was before Jim Sawley, Clem Jones maybe. But somebody one mayor in Brisbane tripped over a sign, and then he banned them all. And so up to that point, for an open home, we were putting out 4 open signs per property, and so I'd start about 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning putting out all my signs, and they were all over Ascot. And whereas a lot of agents were only putting out 1 or 2 signs, I'm putting out 4 per property. So I just got known really quickly, and then I just got really good listings, and then all of a sudden, even the top boutique agency there, Havoc and Jackson, their top salesperson was trying to sell his Hamilton house, couldn't sell it. And he gets on the phone to me and he said, "Peter, look, we've never met, but I see you're selling a lot of property in Ascot. Can you sell my home?" And so I sold his house after about 4 weeks. He'd had it on the market for about 4 months. And I had a knack of breaking bad news to people quickly. So instead of waiting, if I thought the property was overpriced, which they all were, and we all know that
Still
hasn't
are.
really changed much,
No.
I just learned how to break that news to somebody in a rational way that wasn't emotional, that wouldn't affect them emotionally. I just got them to see why that was a problem. And so that became my thing. So even when I opened up my first agency and later, I used to call it Price Reduction Tuesdays. And I'd just go around the sales team and we'd look at stock that had been on the market for 6 weeks or whatever, and I'd go, well, that one's probably a bit overpriced, and we'd agree it was. And I'd work with the agent, sit down with them, we'd phone the homeowner together, and we'd get a 5% price reduction, and then the property would sell. And then we'd move on to the next. So I think, I was very lucky going through Dalgety and having that experience, and that international experience gave me a lot of front and confidence. So I was a very sort of probably a little bit overconfident sort of young bloke. But it was backed up with knowledge. Like it wasn't false confidence. But and then I just wanted to keep going, and the only way I could find I could do that was to try something else. So I went into property development. I worked for a property developer, QM Properties, and I only lasted there for about a month because I was smoking like nothing else, and they were all smoking and they were drinking Coke.
Smoking normal cigarettes? Or?
Normal cigarettes, but eating meat pies for breakfast and morning tea, and the boss was like 200 kilos, and he's like chugging down 2 litres of Coke and 2 packets of smokes, and we're all like that, and I was overweight, and I'm like, this is going to kill me. I hate this. It's just not me. So I quit. And then...
so quit real estate in a hole? Or?
No, I thought I'll get a job in project marketing because I like that idea. And I don't know how it happened, but Karen organised this. We were invited to a dinner party. And it's the funniest thing. So I'm at this dinner party and we get onto property. And I was telling this group of strangers about a development at Carindale I'd read about, and I said it's the future of property in Brisbane that will see a lot more like that. And it was a small lot development on 300 square metre blocks with zero lot line. So one side of the house shared the boundary, and it was the first of its kind. It was called Pine Mountain Carindale, next to the Pine Mountain Golf Course. Well, I get a call the next day from this guy called Mark, and Mark calls me and says, I met you last night. I went, oh, yeah. Hi, Mark. I was a bit surprised. And he said, did you know that was my development? I said, what? And he said, Pine Mountain. He said, do you know that's my development? I said, no. And he said, can you come and have a meeting with us? And I went, yeah. Next minute, I got a job with them out of the blue as their sales manager, and I sold that project and had 104 houses, and we did one that had a block of units of Kangaroo Point called Vantage and all these other projects. And then I mentioned Paul Curtin earlier. We did a project where we're the project managers and Mirvac were the builders, and the land was owned by a lawyer, and it was at Norman Park called Early Street. People used to get married there. It was like this venue with a heritage listed house. And Paul Curtin was with PRD Inner East and Damien Hackett, and great guys. And Paul was vested with were given the job to be the salesperson because the lawyer who owned the land wanted a local agency, didn't want our own team to market and sell the property. Well, we marketed the property, but didn't want our team to sell the property. So I had to train Paul in how to sell off the plan, which is completely different to selling bricks and mortar. So that's how I met Paul, and we've known each other ever since. But yeah.
So how did you get from all of that to setting up your own business?
Well, I became a director at Petrac, and I ran up their real estate arm of their business. And then somewhere along the line, I read an article about the town plan in Brisbane changing. And there was a big move for medium density and high density changes to the town plan. They changed the town plan in Newstead and Fortitude Valley because of all the industrial there, and they could see that that was going to be high density and medium to high density through that area. And it dawned upon me there would be a lot of units and townhouses built in that area, and there'd be a lot of development stock and a lot of opportunity. So I went to my business partners who were the development side of Petrac, and I was the agency side of Petrac, and I said to Mark and Peter, we should open up a Petrac Property Ventures project marketing team in that area and get behind and do a resale business there, a brokerage. And they just wanted to develop, and they saw that as not being part of their core business. And so I thought about it, and it just kept calling to me. And I just one day went in and said, I want to do this. And I gave them 6 months' notice so that to unravel myself out of the business and find somebody else to take over. I'm glad I did that because, we're friends to this day. And I started up Hutton Real Estate in Robertson Street in a 38 square metre little shop, and we grew that down to Brunswick Street, not to where you recall.
Where was the original one?
Where McGrath are now, on Brunswick Street. So that was my office.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And we built that up, and I had a team of 13, and I built a smallish rent roll of 100 and something properties, and I was just building it on my own, and I got to a point where I was like, I just was jack of it, and stress, and I think I learned a lot about myself, and that I'm very good at building and creating and getting things going, and that that foundational work, or helping somebody else do the same. But once we got into like, this is a business now, and this is what it's going to be for the next 20 years, without a new vision of growth, I was like, I just lost interest in it. And
so you had the one. Did you have two offices at one stage?
Yeah, well, with Hutton Hutton, we had three offices. We had New Farm,
yep.
Hawthorne, and Yeronga. And I think, at the height of that business, they were, I would say, very successful. The business generally was very successful. I had a lot of expansion plans, but, the universe throws you a curly here and there occasionally, and I got that, and my team got, you could say headhunted, and I lost about 75% of my business of revenue within about 8 to 10 week period. And
I saw a video of you, I think it was 2022, and you were talking about growing the business and having 100 staff and.
Yeah.
So what happens you had all those sort of dreams and growth and ambitions, and then how do we get to, was it sort of did you see the cracks appearing? Was it a slow whisper, or was it sort of a loud bang?
Well, a bit of both. I think a year before the bang happened, there was signs, and I was probably ignoring those signs.
What sort of signs? Are you talking financial, or were you mentally gone? Not
financially, more like key people, signs with key people, and some people that maybe my ambitions weren't the same as their ambitions, and that I don't know. Maybe it would have happened anyway, but. There was a lot going on. I might have lost a little bit of interest in it as well. Maybe we got to a plateau. There was a stage where we moved out of Brunswick Street down to Fortitude Valley into the rectory, that beautiful old heritage building. I had the whole building, and I had big plans. But I introduced an idea at that stage of building a sort of sideline business where I would help other small agencies build their brands. And maybe that was the thing that spooked people. And, there's one thing for sure is, as a leader, I probably fell down at that point, that last 2 years, where I should have been absolutely hyper-focused on my team, and I wasn't. I was in that stage where the creativity was starting to come through again, and I wasn't feeling it at Hutton Hutton myself. Like, if I was an employee there, I probably would have left. And that says, speak volumes. So like...
do you think you maybe... Because I was thinking back to... I had a couple of Aussie franchises, and Aussie were big on, you have to manage people, you shouldn't be at the coalface and all that sort of stuff, and I love the coalface. Yep. And they really pushed that, and I went, all right, you're right. And I spent 6 months back not client facing, not in the scenario business, and I had to manage all the people, and I totally lost interest in the business.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Because I think some people are sort of, they're good at the coalface, or they're very good managers or whatever. But it's hardly ever that you're good at both.
Yeah.
You think that's what sort of drove you?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because after the pandemic, and that year of the pandemic, and at that stage, I was on the tools. I was selling right up to that point. And in that year, I was ranked on REA, the real estate ranking for New Farm. I was the number one agent in New Farm that year. And that happened just leading into Christmas that year. And, I had a lot of celebration around that. And generally speaking, the team were pretty buzzed that happened. My team, at least in my New Farm office, they're proud that here we are, a little boutique, and we had very big competitors in the area, Place and Ray White, and sure, I had project sales local that went into that, but hey, I got the listing, and I listed a project with Heath Williams from Place, and we shared it 50-50, which was developed by Joe Adset Architects, and it was tremendous development, and very lucrative, of course. And I'd sold a fair bit at another project locally, and Karen and I had sold a big project, a $75 million project a few years earlier. So I had a lot of cash flow, a lot of money coming in for me personally, and for the business, and I was churning it back into the business. But then I thought, after that, I went, I'm going to do that. I'm going to become a full-time manager of my business. And I'm not managerial material. I am. People have accused me of being controlling. I'm not controlling as such as, well, I kind of am. But
Do you reckon your ego got in the way, though, of wanting to have all these offices and all these people and sort of follow in the footsteps of sort of your Ray White and Place?
Kind of.
Do you think you maybe should have stayed boutique and...
I've thought a lot about that, Tom, and I wrote a little post today on my Instagram and Facebook, etc., about that. I had a conversation with Damien, back in 2001-ish, at a where we all got really drunk and we were smoking cigars, and it was great. And Damien and I were talking, by the time we got really drunk, we were talking about what our next steps were. And this is just before they were going to open up Place. And, it was like, go big or stay small. And I've gone, I'll stay small. And I sort of adopted that attitude at Hutton Hutton. And but then I could see the advantages of having size and managing that process. What I probably, where the lessons is that you can't do everything. And, I've got some very strong skill sets. I'm a very good salesperson. If I want to sell, I can sell. It doesn't really excite me unless I'm selling something new and bigger and different. Like when I was selling wool was fantastic. Then selling real estate, and especially the high ticket items, was fantastic. But then it all became a little bit boring, I guess, for me. And I could never be one of the, and hats off to them, to the Matt Lancashires, and so I'm at a focus and stayed focused on their craft and on their art, and developed it to where they've gone and where they'll take it to as well. I admire that, but I'm not built that way. I'm a creative person, and if I can't see a creative avenue for something, I lose interest in it. So Hutton Hutton was a creative thing, but then stepping back and then sort of like dealing with fear around post-COVID and stuff like that and what we're doing, I probably got into babysitting mode rather than, not that we had babies and, had really great people around us, and then I, started bringing on a few extra people that were probably not a good fit culturally, weren't a good fit for me. I remember at one stage I was getting my blood pressure tested, and I had a 24-hour monitor. You seen one of those things? You carry them like a briefcase, and it's strapped on you, and you have to write a diary note every half hour on the half hour what you're doing. And it goes 24 hours, you go to the doctor. I went to the doctor, they download the data, and you sit down straight away within 10 minutes of being in the doctor's clinic. And my doctor was fantastic, and she said, oh my God, what happened here at 3:05. And I looked at my diary note, and it was a conversation I'd had with a particular agent, and it was probably at the worst point in my time as a manager that I realised I hate doing this work.
Is that what it got to, though? Were you waking up and just not enjoying it? Did you see it unravel quickly? Did it unravel quickly?
It unravelled in basically 8 weeks.
So 8 weeks
from 30 people to 4. That's how quickly. As soon as one person went, who was charismatic and had an internal following, it just fell apart from there. And also, like that, people were getting phone calls, and I knew this because other principals were calling my team, and other headhunters were calling my team well before the second office left, and saying, Hutton Hutton is falling apart now, and it's going to close, and so I had agents resigning because a headhunter had told them that, and I'm trying to explain to them, no, as long as we get together. So then it was just Karen, my wife, myself, my youngest daughter Paris, and one agent who was loyal and stuck with us and was great, and I was so grateful that she did that. And Ali, and amazing person, and we went a year, and I got back on the tools, and I sold about $30 million worth of real estate that year after not selling for 2 years, and I did virtual, using things like Rita. Ended up doing 300 appraisals that year, roadside, curbside appraisals, and Karen and I are just on the phones and and I went up against Matt on multiple occasions and didn't get listings, and that was a bit disheartening, and that was because people were saying, Matt's selling all the time, you haven't been selling for 2 years, and is this a whim, sort of thing, you're just back for one, like that. There was I lost a bit of my own personal brand as an agent in that 2 years off. I guess if I'd stayed doing that, just me, I would have built it up. If I can do 30 in 1 year, I would have been back up to 40 or $50 million worth of sales the next year, and maybe more.
Were you during that time? Were you already unpacking the business though? Like, were
mentally,
you still in
I
the
was.
business?
Yeah, by 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was mentally exhausted, and I'd never used to do this, but I was having sleeps under my desk. I'd close the door, nobody would know. I'd pull a pillow out and I'd sleep for half an hour because I was mentally, I was falling apart.
So you totally depressed as well, anxiety?
By the end of the year, yes. And I was seeing a counsellor and getting counselling on it, and I was semi-suicidal, and I was suicidal. It was a shocking, harrowing, gut-wrenching, emotional ride. And then we had these 2 agents we were trying to recruit. It's very hard to recruit when you go from 3 offices and everybody said we had the best brand, and had all of this sort of positivity around our brand. 14,000 people a month used to go to our website, unique visitors. That's, for a little business, that's how much community support we had for our business. But as soon as we lost those 2 offices, and then virtually my entire team at New Farm, we lost all of that. All of that went out the door. And so it was a struggle for 12 months. And, we had people say, yeah, but, you could have come back. And I go, well, just think about it like this. If you owned a corner fruit and veg shop that has 100 shoppers that come every day, 100 people come every day, and suddenly there's not 100 people, there's only 15 people coming a day, how long do you reckon that fruit and veg shop would last? Not very long. So we actually did a bang-up job to last a year, but basically we went into debt over that period of time. Debt that we didn't have, and or the debt that we did have, like any operational debt, it was, in proportion to our cash flows, it was a nothing, but then it became a something. And
did you think it was going to completely wreck you?
I did. And it got to January, I put a line in the sand. I'd been speaking to liquidation lawyers 2 months earlier, pushing it away, accountants, lawyers, friends, family, and then I put a line in the sand the 6th of January. If this couple that I've been trying to recruit, that for 5 months said they're starting that next month, that next month, that next month. And then I just realised, come on, Peter, they just don't, it's a nice no. They don't have it in them to tell the truth that they've heard what's happening and they're watching to see if we're recruiting anybody else, and they don't want to be the ones coming in, and I don't blame them. I probably wouldn't have joined us either at that stage. And so on the 6th of January 2024, that's right, I called the liquidation lawyer. I said, send over your papers, and I signed them that afternoon. And
how were you feeling?
It was terrible. And then I told my daughter, and, there was a lot of crying. And then Ali, I mentioned, wasn't in Australia. She was on holidays, and I didn't want to do it over the phone, so I waited for her to come back. And then I told her it was devastating for her, and she was, very upset. And, like most people wanted sort of like, I would have been good if I'd known 6 months ago. Well, we weren't planning to closing 6 months ago, and we were trying to revive the business, and we'd put so much energy and effort into that brand, and we loved it, and we had a lot of followers and that loved it. And generally speaking, before that collapse actually happened, the feedback we had from our overall team was there was no gripes, there was no, I wish you were like this. Everybody was super happy with everything. They loved the branding, they loved the marketing. We gave our team a lot of brand support, a lot more than anybody was giving at the time. And, free graphic, I had a full-time graphic designer working for me offshore, who'd worked for me for 7 years, still does work for me now, and codenamed the Russian, and we did with him and with Karen copywriting, and Karen's a professional copywriter. They actually got everything, and training. We did so much training. The last year before everybody left, I spent close to $200,000 on training my team, and so I brought in trainers and people and acquired ideas and put them into our business. But look, I don't blame anybody that left, because if a business is collapsing, you don't want to stick around if you don't have to. And it's real estate; people are in it for the money generally. A lot of people are. I was surprised and shocked when it happened, but then I wasn't when I sort of looked back at what was going on a year earlier. And I guess a lot of blame short term back then a lot of self-responsibility, and if I changed and did things differently, could have I stopped that? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I could have, but it doesn't really matter. It's a gift, and I'm super grateful for all of those people that left. Absolutely grateful. Like, they don't know what they've given me. Like, I could live off an oily rag now. Before I couldn't. I see life completely differently now. I mean, I'm not scared of really anything now, and that's the difference. I was before. So they gave me that. I had to go through a year and a half of grief, and in fact, it was only about 2 weeks ago that Karen and I, basically within a day of each other, we recognised that we'd stopped grieving. And we'd learned a few things, and we learnt different techniques, but when it did collapse, we took the little bit of cash we had left and we hopped on a plane and we went to India. And we spent 6 weeks travelling India. We then went to Sri Lanka. We had no accommodation booked. We didn't know what we were going to do. As far as I knew, I thought I was staying over there for a year. Because the accommodation's cheap and the food's cheap, and I like India. And Karen loves India. And we ended up in Sri Lanka and then Cambodia and then Thailand. And 3 months later, we were running out of money and ideas. And
so what? Just take me to that trip there. You've closed the business. You don't know what you're going to do.
No.
You're fucking at the end of your wits.
We were
I don't know
fucked.
how you kept your relationship together, but we can get to that. You're both at the end of your wits. You're done, stressed, depressed, suicidal.
Yeah.
And you've got a little bit of cash left, and you guys go home and you go, fuck it, we're out of here.
So 2 weeks later, we're on a plane.
And are you going, we're out of here, we're done, I don't care what I'm going to do when I get back, I'll go back to the wool store.
I actually started phoning people in the wool industry on my way to India. or at Singapore airport, I'm contacting contacts from my wool days. I spoke to several.
So you didn't know what you're going to do with your life.
I thought maybe I'll just go back into wool. I know it's been 30 years, but how hard would that be?
And what's Karen doing? She's
like me. She's freaking out.
But you've got like a bit of cash left and you're going to take off.
Yeah. I had some super. All my money that I made over the last 15 years went into my business. All of it. Not much into super. You don't pay yourself super, but I did. I paid a little bit. So we've lived off super for 12 months and I've got no more super. It's all gone. And,
How old are you then?
I'm 62, and people are going to be horrified looking at this going, he's fucked. He's 62.
Were you 62 then?
I'm 62 now.
Oh, yeah. What were you then?
61 last year. And 2024, March 2024, I turned 61. And I was drinking like no tomorrow in India. I drank 6 bottles of tequila in India over 6 weeks, and any beer I could get hold of every day. And
Karen's the same?
Not as much. She drank a little bit of tequila, but I'm having it for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And I'm not an alcoholic per se, but I became like an alcoholic at that point, operating just to numb the pain and deal with things. And then last year when we moved back to Australia, not been back, we came back after 3 months. We rented out our house to get some sort of cash flow in for that, and we moved down to Byron Bay. Moved into an Airbnb that a friend had. So we got a mate's rate for 3 months. And we decided we're going to stay here, Ocean Shores. Then I did a magic mushroom trip for a self-healing exercise. It was a 5-hour trip with a person that does this properly. Anybody listening to this, just don't do this yourself. This guy is a 25-year ex-paramedic, brought a defibrillator, brought the chemicals that reverse the drug. He's done it 1,000 times, and a smart guy. And so I did this trip, and I had a real opening up of my creative self, and that's when I got back into my art and started painting. And I painted a lot, sold about 60 paintings this year, just small ones, at the Byron markets. But I've got jack of that because it's just like a production line, so I've stopped doing that. But I'm still going to do my art, but just bigger pieces. And then I did a second trip last year, early part of this year, start of this year. It was quite different, and with the same guy, it was frightening. And because I really I made an intention to learn something about myself and to really go as deeply as I could internally. So it wasn't a fun trip. The first one was all shits and giggles. Laughed for 5 hours straight. The second one, I cried for about 5 hours straight, and I screamed. I thought I was dead. Everything. It was just an incredible experience. But what's come out of that was last year when I did the first one, I stopped drinking alcohol, and I haven't had alcohol since. So I'm totally, and I have no ambitions, or I don't feel like I'm missing out. And I go to the pub and I just have a 0% alcohol beer while everybody else drinks beers, and I don't care. Like drink as much as you like. It doesn't interest me anymore. I don't smoke anything. I don't have any other substances or anything like that. I'm just like, it's just cool, except for coffee. I love my coffee. But yeah, it's... Do
you remember what you were crying about?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, I had a memory of a childhood memory, and it was pretty confronting. And it was very, very confronting, so I had a bit of follow-up with that. But it answered a lot of my life, and I connected with that, and sort of a family story, a dark family story, and
Did you keep that buried down, do you think, for years?
It happened very early in my life, so yes, and I've got a great-grandfather who ran one of the biggest cults in Australia. And I feel like there was a lot of darkness that came from him through to my father. But anyway, that's another story. But I dealt with that, and it took me a while to sort of intellectualise it, understand it, and deal with it. And I got some counselling on it, and then after that, I was like good to go. And then this year, I woke up one day and went, I got to create something. So then I just got into creation mode and painting, and did a lot of that, and painted 100 paintings and sold 60 or 70 of them, and then I got into prop tech because I love technology and property and my thinking around that. And I've written about 4 little books, and started these little brands, and heroically came about. That was somebody at a crossroads, and I've created a report for people who are 50 plus or even 40 plus who are at a crossroads that helps them dive into their story like I did. Get some current reality going, get some ownership going like I did, and then project forward in time and imagine a new future for yourself like I did. And how much it has relieved me of a burden in my life. And yeah, man, it just changed everything for me. So yeah, I've got a prop tech idea that I've now got a New Zealand potential partner on. I have an investor for it, but I've decided they're non-property like, so I'm hoping I can roll that out soon. And I've got a couple other little irons in the fire, and I went for a job interview last week and got the job, and then said, no, I can't do this because I didn't think it was a good fit. And so I'm still open to possibility, working for somebody, yeah.
Real estate agents get such a bad rap. And I've dealt with a lot of real estate agents in my 21 years of being a broker. And I only find a handful that are good. And then the rest are sort of rats and mice. I feel like when you were running Hutton Hutton, you never reminded me of, I watched some of your videos and stuff, you never reminded me of an agent. You're always like a cool dude, well-spoken, well-dressed, and just had a bit of empathy and seemed a little bit kind, which for me is like anti-real estate. But there are some good agents out there. I'll keep saying that because they refer me some good business. But did you find it hard to be identified as a real estate agent?
I've never felt like I've really belonged in real estate. It was a means to an end for me for most of that time, and had to do something. I don't have any regrets being a real estate agent. I'm like you, like it used to upset me or annoy me or worry me about the attitude of some agents or many agents that I'd come across and how they were dealing with things. I guess it comes down to your values, and I value honesty and integrity and directness, and I value communication, and I am a good communicator, I've learned over the years, even though I failed English at high school, which is very funny, but I am a good communicator, I've learned, and I've learned to become a good communicator, and again, I think all of the training I've had over the years, so I feel agents potentially haven't been taught how to communicate well, so to get what they want, a deal, they may not communicate things as wisely or as fairly or as transparently as possible. And I still think to this day there's agents and processes out there that don't serve consumers well. I'm actually really delighted to see buyers agencies. I mean, everybody's against how poorly buyers agents are trained. Well, real estate agents have been poorly trained as well when they first start off. So it's like, what are you talking about? But buyers agents are a necessary thing, and I've advocated for 30 years nearly now that we should have buyers agents. I have had some difficult relationships with some buyers agents, and that's not because they're buyers agents as such, but more again about the communication style, and some interactions with my own team. I don't like bullies, I don't suffer bullies at all, and I'll stand up for anybody, even if I'm going to get clobbered. I'd rather be the one getting clobbered than somebody else. I don't like seeing people getting bullied, and I've been bullied, and I know what it's like. So I don't like bullies, and I've had the odd agent who have been a bully to their clients, and it's unnecessary. Like, you're there to serve. So I think that my attitude has always been in real estate, has been very primary to me, is I'm there to serve. It's not about Peter Hutton. But at the same time, what was about Peter Hutton was about, let's present ourselves as best as possible. Let's have the best website. Let's have a great brand. Let's brand ourselves and market ourselves in such a way that we as good as any, as the best of the best. That was always our goal. So I was always challenging myself to grow in that department.
Would you ever go back to real estate?
Not as an agent, but I would as potentially if I was helping to build a brand, not a Peter Hutton brand, but a brand. I would find that interesting and fun, and I could do that. But what I'm planning to do now is you'll see this little thing here.
Yeah, I was reading about that. Yeah.
Magnetically is about something I had started a while ago, about 5 years ago or 4 years ago. I ran a little brand incubator down at Byron Bay as a sideline thing, maybe even longer than that. Maybe it was 10 years ago now. And I had 4 principals of real estate offices join me for 3 days, and I built 4 agencies in that time frame. I built it then. I worked out what they needed, helped them, and I put it all together for them, the whole thing, brand thing, and they paid me, and that was the end of it. And I stayed in touch with them, and I'm still friends with those guys, and one has come back talking to me just recently on coaching and stuff like that. But I'm going to do something like that, and I've been creating a scorecard for any agency that they can go onto the scorecard, answer 60 questions, and figure out where they rank in terms of being an employer brand, a brand that that would attract agents to work for them. Because really, that's the litmus test of any business. If you can employ people and they want to work for you, and the thing that I've put in there is a section on retaining people. My big lessons is retention, and so I've studied that like for 2 years now. And study the best agencies, the best brands about retention, and I'll put a questionnaire in there. So I don't profess to be the person that has got lived experience in retaining a business, because I clearly haven't. I had a business and I don't have a business, but I am a person that can create a little office, 2 people, Karen and I, and within 3 years, 4 years, have 3 offices and a well-known brand, and and have traffic coming to our website and people wanting to come back to and work with us and recruit people and so on. And it's not the first time I've been able to do that. So that's something that I do want to do in real estate. And whether it's through coaching or working within an organisation, I'm open to all of that. But I just know that what I have to do is to be true to my values, and don't compromise my values. And generally speaking, I haven't. And I have a little bit in the last 4 years leading up to the demise of H&H. And really to leverage the thing that I like doing and the skill set I had, and that's being able to take an idea and actually get it going quickly. So even my prop tech ideas, like when the idea popped into my head and I've gone and I started checking, it's validating that idea, then I started crunching numbers, and then I started working, around the UX of those, the user experience of those ideas, and gone, well, that's interesting. And then I built a pitch deck, and then I've gone and shown it to somebody, and they've gone, yeah, we'll put money into that. And then I've gone, whoa, this is happening too fast. Well, it's happening fast because I'm putting it together fast, you know what I mean? But so I'm open. I'm not open to being I've done my time as a salesperson.
So how do you feel when you look back, you're 62, and you look back over the last sort of say 20 years, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like, fuck, I failed? Or do you feel like it was all meant to happen to where you are today and the things you're actually got an interest in doing and you're finding your vibe?
Yeah. I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones because I've got mates who have been lawyers and barristers their whole life. They've hated their job their whole life. They can't do anything else. There's nothing else that they can do. They're so scared to leave because there's nothing else for them. They can't work. There's nothing on their horizon that they can see that they could do, and they're so trapped within the structure of their own personal careers, on debt, on property, and so forth. So I'm one of the lucky ones because I think I can do anything if I just feel like, show me something and I'll learn it. And I might be shit at it at first, but I sort of go, well, given time, I'll be good at it. So I've got that, and that's what 20 years has taught me. And I look back to this last 20 years and go, I did good. Like I built, here I am today on your podcast now, and I think this is indicative of the fact that I produced something that's worth talking about and a life that's, worth a little bit of sharing, and maybe a couple hundred, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million people listen to this podcast. I don't know, but I think everybody's got something to contribute, and everybody's got a story to share, and I don't think there's any failures on the planet. I don't see any failures. In fact, anybody that says to me, you failed, you didn't, and I said, have you ever failed? Or I can ask that question, have you ever failed? And if they say hand on the heart, no, and my response to that is, I go, well, you haven't tried hard enough. You've just not pushed yourself. You've just done something comfortable, and you're going to be, and if you're happy with that, happy for you. But why, if that's your happy space, why judge somebody else's happy space? So there was a lot of shame around H&H falling over. I can tell you that was the psychological issue I had, the shame. But I don't have shame around it now. Now, even today, I posted a picture of my whole website. I'm proud of what we created, and I'm satisfied with the lessons I learnt. And because now I've learnt them. I've got them. That's just part of me now. And, somebody who's got a small business wants to know how not to go belly up. I can tell you 2 or 3 different ways how not to now, with great expertise.
So just on that, all the stuff, it was really interesting, your point of view there. If I put 18-year-old Peter Hutton here, he's sitting here, I'm him. You've got all this experience.
Are you trying to make me cry now? I hear you've done that with previous guests.
So you've got 18-year-old Peter Hutton sitting here.
Yes.
You've learned everything you've learned and you're 62. What do you tell me? What do you tell me that's going to help me because either end up where you are or better?
I would just say to 18-year-old me, it's all going to be perfect. You're so lucky. Now you are making me cry. I've got a wife. Karen's been with me for 36 years. We've been together 40 years. I met Karen when she was 19. I've got 2 beautiful daughters, really close family. Got a grandson. I'm super healthy. Who knows? I might live 20, 30 years. I might, die sooner. Who knows? But at this point, I've got my dream. I always wanted to live by the beach. I'm living by the beach. With Karen, I built a community in Ocean Shores and Brunswick Heads, and we had friends down there anyway, but we've got new friends. We have between 6 and 8 of us hang out every single day for coffee, 7 days a week. We get there at 6:30 in the morning at Old Maids at Bruns Head, and we talk shit, we laugh, we giggle, we talk serious stuff, we talk about what's going on in the family stuff, and then we talk shit again and giggle and laugh and carry on. And these are people I felt I've known my whole life, but I've only known them for 12 months. They're our community. And I can walk through Bruns, or I can walk through Ocean Shores Shopping Centre, and I'll see people and I'll wave, and they'll wave to me and stop and talk. And, to me is heaven. Like I couldn't think of anything better than that. And in fact, like we occasionally think about what would we do with the lotto, and I'd go, I don't know. How would it improve my life? Okay, I could do with a second car. Being used to having 2 cars in the family, that would be good. What would I get? Well, there's this old 1991 Hilux that I've seen on Marketplace. It's in good nick. It's done a couple 100,000 kilometres. So I could drive around that. That would suit me, And here I am, who's driven AMGs and stuff. So as an 18-year-old, I could say, don't worry, you're going to get to go travel the world. You're going to go to all of these places in the world. You're going to do all of these wonderful things. You're going to, everywhere you work, you'll build relationships, and they'll stay with you, most of them. And they have. Like, I've got friends from my wool trade. I can't say that I've stayed with any friends from my recent Hutton Hutton days. And that's a shame, really, because some of them, a couple of them, both of them, 2 guys said, you're like my dad, and that's not the case. Like I've done something wrong, and that's on them. That's not on me. But I've got friends from my Dalgety days. I've got old mates from my Dalgety days that I speak to once or twice a year. I've got mates from my old boss, Fred Whitbread, who's 90 years of age. I see him once every 2 years, and he jokes and he brings up old stories, and we laugh about it and joke about it. And no, I'm lucky. And as an 18-year-old, you're lucky because you're going to do a lot of stuff that people just don't get to experience. Like I've travelled to some very cool places that most people don't go to, and I've experienced things. I've lived in Sydney. I've lived in a harbourside apartment in Sydney. I owned a 150-year-old house in Melbourne. I used to weigh 95 kilos because I ate and drank a lot. So I know what it's like living high on the hog, or whatever you call it. I'm 75 kilos now, which is back to pretty much senior school weight. So, I got to do all of that, and I survived it. I've been a pretty good... I used to be a hunter. I used to hunt.
Live the life.
I've done it a lot. I've been an artist. I've been an author. I used to sell a book online at Amazon called The Love Price. So yeah, no, I don't think I'm satisfied totally in that. I don't feel like I've finished making stuff up and creating stuff, and I'm super excited about what's coming next. And it's not that I don't have problems now, because that's not true. Everybody has problems, but my coping mechanisms have completely changed, and I just don't sweat shit anymore. And it's just like, as you get older, you just get to experience more.
All right. Got a little... We'll wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Got a quick fire round that I do at the end.
Shit.
5 questions.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Go.
1 word to describe 18-year-old Peter.
Optimistic.
1 word to describe Peter now.
Optimistic.
Well, this is my eyesight. Best risk you ever took?
Best risk I ever took. That's a hard one. I think committing early to one woman is a risk. Getting married early, getting married at 26 and going, there's a risk in, is she right or whatever? And I just knew she was right the moment I met her, and I went, no, I'm locked in. I'm going to marry her. And 4 years later, I married her, and it was the best decision I ever made. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I like that. Most surprising thing about starting over?
Most surprising thing about starting over is that I actually feel like I'm in a better position today than I was when I started Hutton Hutton.
Mentally?
Knowledge, skill, mentally, all of that. Like, I just feel like I've got much more in my toolkit today than I back then at Hutton Hutton days. Without a shadow of a doubt, I definitely have.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned before nothing scares you,
Yeah.
but I don't believe you.
Well,
What scares you now?
Sharks. I don't. I'm very.
What
good-
about life?
life? Well, what scared me last year when I that magic mushroom trip, or this year, was the fear of death, and not so much the fear of what happens when you die, but leaving my family, leaving my wife and my 2 daughters and my grandson. That's what really freaked me out when I thought I had died. I actually thought I was dead, and I was just like, I don't want to go. And I was so scared. So yeah, I think death is a big one, but I'm not, like, especially in the last 12 months, it's sort of like I've got a different relationship with life and death now. It's quite different than before. It's quite different, yeah, in a good way.
That's a morbid way to end the podcast.
I know. But what it teaches you is live your life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I think that's the thing. Like, I'm more full of life today because of that, because of last year. That's the gift. The gift gave me life. I really believe that. I think that's what I've got now. I've got life. I've got ambitions. I've got excitement. I've got fun. I've got joy. I saw an echidna on my walk this morning. Walked in front, and that's like heaven to me. Like seeing that beautiful animal walk 50 feet in front of you and go, how lucky are we?
You've seen the light.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Peter. That
Thanks, Tom.
was a good session. Good little shrink session.
Good shrink session. Thank you.
You, mate.
Thanks, mate.